All right, welcome back to another amazing episode of Split the Vote. I am one of your hosts, Tim, joined by the incredible, amazing, non-Spartan Rob himself. Rob, what's going on? How you feeling?
What's up, Tim? I'm doing okay. I'm here and you're here. And I don't know, it's just like for me, I guess lately, like life's just been lifing. I've been a little disorganized lately. You know,
hmm
um, have you ever seen the movie High School Musical 2?
Of course,
Okay,
of
I'm just
course, I've
making
seen
sure.
it.
You haven't seen however many Christmas movies, so I just got to make sure you've seen some culture. Okay.
Apparently, I was wrong last week, and that one movie is actually a Christmas movie, but I will stand my ground and say that it's not. But that's a debate for the comments in another day. But
Yeah,
yes,
Home
I have
Alone
seen
is
High School Musical.
100%. Okay, yeah. Home Alone is definitely 100% a Christmas movie. But yeah, so High School Musical too, right? So the other day, I was just driving in the car and then the song Gotta Go My Own Way popped on. And this line that has just really stuck with me lately was it's in the beginning and it just goes like life keeps getting in the way. Whenever we try, somehow the plan is always rearranged.
Hmm.
And I was just thinking how that's so applicable to like my life right now, but then also the game of Survivor, especially this episode too.
Yeah, sometimes you can't control what happens and things just go the way that they want to go. We saw it again, like you said, this episode with Thomas, and we see it in our everyday lives. Like, for example, with the price of these groceries nowadays, I just made chili dogs for dinner yesterday. I'm like, I wanted something else, but I'm gonna make chili dogs and it'll be okay. It was some amazing chili dogs because I can cook when I'm paying attention to the stove and not almost burning down my kitchen. But they were great and amazing.
I'm glad you didn't, I'm glad that you just found a recipe that you can actually cook now, that you don't have to worry about
Wow.
burning down.
Wow. Speaking of burning down, seems like this episode, the tribes got burned down from what they used to be. We see these whole new sets of players on new beaches, most of them this episode around. And I thought it was an amazing, incredible episode. Some of my favorite aspects of Survivor showed up this time around, specifically the strategy that we love so much. And I can't wait to talk about it and get into it with you, especially with discussing the swap just in general. So, just to give everybody a quick rundown of the new tribes, just in case we forgot. On the new Vula tribe, there's Kyle, Camilla, and the California Girls. They're not a band, but on the California Girls, there's of course Shaheen, David, not David, sorry, Joe. I always confuse those two, and lastly Thomas. Then of course there's the Lagi tribe, which is composed of Eva, Star, David, actually this time, Charity, and lastly on that tribe we have none other than, drum roll please,
Mary.
Mary, the legend herself. And then lastly, of course, on Siva, we have Say, Cedric, Mitch, Chrissy, and Bianca. So these are the new tribes. And for me, I'm loving when things mix up. I always love the swap. How do you feel about swaps in Survivor, Rob?
I really do like the swap. I think what's really important about the swap is just mixing up the dynamics, right? Where you're changing the norm of what's going on in a tribe. And especially when I know like a lot in recent Survivor with the new era, we've seen one tribe get decimated lately. And
Mm-hmm.
the swap has kind of come in at the right time to mix it up and save those tribes and just change the game and its dynamics. And it forces every player to not necessarily abandon the game that they were playing before, but everyone has to reshuffle the deck and just play the game that they were just dealt. How do you
Yeah,
feel about it?
it's something that I personally love and miss. Like, how do we have Survivor without the tribe swap? Like, that's something that's been essential to Survivor for. almost its entire 25-year run, it was introduced the second ever season, or actually, it was introduced in Marquesas. But since then, we've seen it again and again and again. And with the new era going to three tribes instead of two, not having that tribe swap and seeing that one tribe just get absolutely wiped off of the face of the earth almost definitely made me miss a swap. So I'm happy just to see a swap back in existence. And I do theorize and I wonder, I'm like, what makes a swap happen in the new era? On one hand, is it pre planned by production? Or is it just like we can't have a tribe of just two people or just one person anymore? So we're going to swap. Do you feel like it's one or the other?
I as the host of Survivor Maryland, where I had to really incorporate the game plan for the season with idols and advantages, challenges, everything like that. I think I would really hope from a production standpoint that Survivor would have the outline of the game already like written, said and done before like day one when everyone gets to the beach. Only because I don't think the game itself should really adapt to the players and how it's being played. I think it should be the other way around, where it's the players having to deal with Survivor. And I
Hmm.
think it's really up to production to outline, is there going to be a swap this season or not? That's what I
Right.
think. What do you think?
I I feel like it just has to be pre-planned at this point because anything else is a little shaky when it comes to the ethicality of the swap existing in the first place. I don't think that Survivor ever tries to force the hand of players in any way beyond maybe having to lose your vote potentially. But beyond that, it's definitely all about player choice and player fate and their agency. So I'm leaning on the side of a swap is meant to be when it's meant to be, and it's in place when it's in place. We just don't get to see when that is, when that won't be until it happens. But when it does happen, Rob, there's a lot of great things we should know about a swap. Specifically, the Tim and Rob declassified swap survival guide. I have two rules. Rob has two rules himself. And I'll go first, Rob. When it comes to a swap, from watching Survivor since I've had consciousness, the one thing that works is finding a crack. So that's my first rule. If you're on the bottom of this tribe, try to find a crack. If you're at the top of the tribe, try to create a crack. Try to give this impression that things aren't what they are. And from every time, at least in the new era, that we've seen a swap happen and we've seen players either find a crack or create a crack, they've gone really far in the game. Some of them have even won. So that's my first rule.
I mean, that's a great rule. I mean, it allows players to kind of figure out, where am I in this tribe, because you're not playing on your old tribe anymore. This is now the tribe that you're on, the hand that you're dealt, the people that you are playing this game with. And it's really important for you to figure out, what's my standing, my position within this tribe, and you got to be able to find those cracks, figure out, how can I stay in this game to see another day. For me, one of my big rules is information is currency in this game. And at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of a split, players are always looking to see who they can get information from to then make a decision. So you must be willing to give information. But you also have to keep in mind, the most valuable information that you know of what's going on in the game, at least from your perspective. And you can keep that to yourself if you want, but you have to be willing to share information that is pivotal. That's big
Mm-hmm.
information for a player on another tribe. Otherwise, players are going to think you're cheap with your information, and they're not going to want to work with you in the future.
Yeah, just like in real life, in order to make money, you got to have money. In order to gain trust, you have to give trust. And that's a great point for thinking about how to share information to create trust on a swap tribe from what we've seen on Survivor. My second point, which is maybe a little less of something you can actually follow is hope that the survivor guys are on your side, because if not, you're just screwed. Rachel last season was somebody who happened to have the survivor gods on her side, with being in a bad situation where she was the only person from her original tribe on a tribe of 5 players from their original tribe. But luckily, we saw an advantage come through on the backs of her social connections to benefit her game. Other people probably won't be so lucky in the future. Other people haven't been as lucky in the past. Swap screwed is a term for a reason. And because of that, all you can do is put your hand in that bag, grab a buff off of that plate, and cross your fingers and hope.
I mean, we talked about it at length last episode, how there is so much luck in the game of Survivor. And it really is just a roll of the dice, game a chance to see how just a swap really just changes the game and its dynamics. And there's nothing you could do. All elements of control have just left you in your game and every other player, and it's back into the hands of the survivor gods for sure. My last tip is you need to identify your standing relationship with the tribe members from your original tribe that are now on your swap tribe.
Mhm.
You have to question how strong your relationship is with them. And if it's strong, you get to the chance to work together as long as possible until your hand is forced. And if it's a weak relationship, this is what I want you to do. I want you to call up a big yellow bus and I want you to throw them underneath that bus. Because that's a relationship you can't necessarily trust going forward in the game. And you got to use your place and your standing to create new relationships with the new players.
Yeah, sometimes, Rob, if it's us in this situation, I got to throw you in the ocean. I got to feed you to the sharks so that I can swim to the other shore. And that other shore is the merge in the game of Survivor. Somebody has to go. If we don't already have that connection, we're not going to become besties all of a sudden in this last moment. It didn't happen with Eva and Star. I don't think that strategy of, oh, we're just on the same original tribe, so let's stick together even though we didn't work together on our original tribe, is gonna work out at all. So I definitely agree with you there. Well, of these new tribes, we go straight into the next challenge. But of these new tribes, it does seem like there's some drama that exists between certain players. So, for example, I just mentioned Eva and Star. They have their beef that's already in existence, but it also seems like David is still holding on to some beef with Charity for whatever reason. To me, it didn't make sense, just because, like, y'all did not lose at Tribal Council at all whatsoever. Charity isn't somebody who has an advantage herself, and we personally as viewers did not see what Charity did that was so bad. Like, I think of the meme that's like, dang, what did she do to make them that mad? Because I wonder.
No, I can't agree. I can't argue against that. I mean, we saw how there was like the collective like core four of David, Chrissy, Kyle, Camilla kind of coming together those early days, and you knew that Mitch was kind of getting pushed out because of his perceived advantage, but then you see him kind of come back into that little group a little bit later. But then Chrissy, yeah, is just kind of out on an island. And it really made me question David and his perspective and his need to really push Chrissy out there, especially when he's just been given a big spoonful of peanut butter from Eva. And you got Star and Eva, two people that are just on opposite ends of the spectrum, and you can just sit pretty right in the middle of those two people. But at the same time, I go back to my survival tips that I just said, and Eva gives David this big cake. And David's got to deliver something back to Eva too. So he's like, hey, well, if you're going to give me Star, here's another player that I'm also willing to give up to. So I think there is a little bit of like that like just a word
Mhm.
that describes that.
Yeah, that's that equivalent exchange. For all my anime fans, I feel like they'll get that reference. But if not, it balances out. It balances the scale. So it definitely makes sense to me, Rob. And then over on the new Siva, of course, there's Cedric bonding with Mitch over their experiences of having a stutter. And then Cedric's like, oh yeah, me and Say are cool. Like we're great. Like that's my girl right there. Like I can pull her in. We can make this work. Immediately cut straight to Say being like, I do not trust Cedric anymore. He blindsided me twice. And personally, I was in my living room last night watching the episode. I burst out laughing just because the contrast in how they perceive stuff was so different. And for Say to, in some ways, throw Cedric under the bus to Bianca, who, mind you, doesn't have a vote, but didn't reveal that she doesn't have a vote, I thought was just hilarious and just goes to show that Say is not letting her name being out there fly under the radar or be swept under the rug easily at all, which she shouldn't, in my opinion.
Definitely. I was so happy for Say, and we got to really see like the repercussions of Cedric's decision at the last tribal council really come into play, which is just so awesome to see as a viewer, right? Immediately after following a pretty troublesome tribal council, Cedric, decides to keep Say after voting for her, and now they're on the same tribe. I mean, that dynamic, it can't get any better than that. So kudos to Say for trying to just play the game and create relationships. And she is now, I think, in a position where she can go back to Cedric and she can kind of move on and try to play her own game with other players too. Because it's like, well, Cedric, we gotta go over what happened at the last tribal council. We gotta tell everybody what happened. So you did vote for me, so I can use that to try to gain information for that one side. And Say can also just happily ride the back of Cedric too. But I don't think
Yeah,
Say's gonna hop onto another person's game. Say is gonna play her game. That's a fact.
absolutely. And just their kind of gameplay and Cedric's voting for Say in the last episode, to me, that's a red flag. When it comes to Survivor and dating, right? Like, for example, one time I went on this date recently, ish, and ish with an asterisk mark on there, right? This was a date to the museum. I'm close to DC. We went to one of the museums down there, and after the date, the guy like quintuple texted me. I'm like, whoa, that's a red flag. Like the attachment is crazy, and I'm normally a person who like is the person who's like, oh my gosh, like this person seems so cool. Like, let me hang out with them. Like, I'm normally the person that is more easy to find themselves attached to people. But this was a first date, and this person is already talking about stuff that would take weeks to get to know people about and make it okay with saying. So that was a red flag in dating. But in Survivor, there's red flags too when it comes to allies in the game. For me, one of those red flags being if an ally on your tribe says that they have an advantage or an idol, but they don't show you. It's like you're doing a lot of this. For folks who are just listening, I'm talking with my hand. You're doing a lot of talking, but not a lot of action, not a lot of backing it up. You need to bring the receipts. So this red flag for me is a lack of receipts. That's my first red flag for Survivor.
You know, on the topic of red flags, another red flag that I have is when I guess I would call this player like the whisperer or something like that. When I confide
Mm.
in you about my game plan, how I'm perceiving the game, maybe someone I want to target, and in no less than 5 minutes, I catch you curled up sitting on the beach talking to another player. It's just in my mind, of course, I'm going to think, are they just spilling everything that I just told this player? So the last thing I want to see from a player on my tribe is someone who is just constantly going back and forth, the players playing the game at a very quick, fast level, not really slowing down, letting the game come to them. And that's alarming for me, especially in a swap too, when there is so much high pressure at this point.
Absolutely, that's like something to be worried of, something to be scared of, especially when there's like little things going around here, little things going around there. I would definitely consider that to be a red flag for sure. The second red flag that I have, I like to call it the friend request. This is when, in my opinion, a tribe mate suddenly wants to become your bestie. We saw it this season with Eva and Star, where Eva immediately, randomly goes up to Star and it's like, yeah, Star, like, we should work together. Like, do you have any advantage? Were you looking for it? You know, do you have the idol? Almost. She at that point she could have just said, Star, do you have the idol? Because it was not very great hiding of that was her motive. So for me, a tribe mate suddenly wanted to become my bestie, suddenly sending me this survivor friend request is a huge, gigantic, ginormous red flag for me.
And sometimes you mistakenly accept those friend requests, right? And you ever catch someone that's just been scrolling your account and they start liking every single picture on your feed? Now that is
Hmm.
a huge red flag. So in the game of Survivor, for me, a
That's a
player.
green flag for me.
Nah,
I'm kidding.
I don't know. It's just like out of the blue, you just accepted their follow. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's like, okay, let's open this door. Let's see what's going on. But I guess maybe me, I want to see what's going on behind closed doors a little bit. But I guess one a thing in Survivor for me that is a red flag is when a player is like overly agreeable. And because I
Mm,
think I view a partnership in the game as like a back and forth where we got to think through our options. We got to give out a scenario and then we got to like dissect it. You got to play devil's advocate. And when I'm giving you an idea and you're yes manning me and you're not giving me anything back. Like, well, what about this could go wrong? Oh, nothing. No, I think it's a great plan. Let's go with that. Like, that just screams red flag for me because what else are you thinking? This can't be the one plan that you were thinking. I know my mind's spinning at 100 miles per hour. Yours is too, but suddenly this is the only idea that you have and the only thing that you want to go forward with
hmm.
scares me a little bit.
Especially because it makes it seem so simple. We know Survivor is never simple, never that simple. Speaking of things being simple, for me, this feels like a great chance to discuss the perceived simpleness of this tribal council as we prepare to head to the Torchy Awards. Rob, I have my pick in mind. Do you have your pick in mind? Because I think I'm
Yeah,
ready to talk about it.
I got my pick of mine too. I'm so ready to go and talk about the Torchy Awards in this tribal council for sure.
All right, it's time for the Torchies. Boom. It's just me here, but I'm going to bring Rob right back on stage because this is the fourth annual Torchy Awards. The Torchy Awards, for folks who are just listening for the first time, is the opportunity for us to highlight the game moves, maybe the way that we like how a player is playing the game within the game of Survivor. This time around, we have two nominees from each of us. Might be similar, might be dissimilar, but ultimately, one person can win one award from each individual. Y'all should let us know who y'all think is y'all's Torture Award winner this episode. But I know I have my pick. Rob, I'm going to give you the honors of going first.
Let's go. All right. So my two nominees for the Torchy Award for me this week is Camilla and Kyle. Two players
Mhm.
that were so pivotal in this last tribal council could not have made it through this round without each other. Everything came down to their partnership, how they were able to navigate a swap together down in numbers. And I was so proud of the game that they played, just being able to dig themselves out of a hole against the three California girls. An impossible challenge. But there was one person that stuck out a little bit more than the other for me. And for me, the winner of the Torchy Award this week was Kyle. An incredible
Hmm.
idol play. He was able to get that idol from trusting Camilla. Camilla gives him back the idol, keeps it in his pocket, and he was able to keep the extra vote on his side. Like I don't know if he kept it or not, but we saw Camilla give Kyle the extra vote, and that's a huge amount of trust. You know that you're safe in this game in such a pivotal tribal council. At least you guaranteed your safety, and you were able to play up your part. You committed to the bit so well and got through this
Yeah.
tribal council.
It honestly was such a beautiful thing to see go right between the two of them. And Kyle was definitely a major part of that plan's success. And because of that, Kyle also has to be one of my nominees. The other nominee is Camilla, of course, the chameleonaire herself. She is a chameleon in this game because she's wanting to put people in front of her. She's wanting to blend in by not being the biggest target. And because of that, Camilla is, of course, my winner for the Torchy Awards for Tim. Let me explain why. Yesterday, Rob, I watched the episode, I tweet. Next thing you know, people trying to fight me about my tweet. Let me show you the tweet, Rob, mind you. So in the tweet, I'm like, chameleonaire giving her advantage to Kyle so that he comes off as the bigger threat. People were like, whoa, that's not what Camilla did. They were like, oh, actually, sifting their glasses up on their face, like she did it for this reason and that reason. I'm like, I think we both agree that Camilla gave her extra vote to Kyle so that if they were feeling iffy about who they were gonna be perceiving as the person getting the most votes from the California girls, they would still be able to at least tie the vote using the extra vote. But what people are forgetting and what people are missing is the effects of what would happen if that scenario actually came into fruition. If Camilla's entire strategy was to make other people seem like the big bad and way more dangerous than her, people are going to be like, oh, Kyle played an idol and Kyle played an extra vote. When it comes to the revote between Thomas and Camilla, if that were the case, they're going to see Kyle voted twice. So all that attention is going to go to Kyle, while Camilla is still going to reap all of its benefits of still being in the game while still not having to risk anything, right? Things could have been entirely different, but between Kyle and Camilla, if push came to shove and they got the idol play wrong, Camilla would have benefited the most. And even with Kyle playing the idol, Camilla still benefits the most because she's here and she didn't have to play the idol. She's the reason he has the idol in the first place, mind you. Well, they worked together, but she solved it. Kyle enlisted her. She got information from Star at the challenge. She invented the lie that got them the perception to go and be perceived as not a pair. So for me, the general of Operation Guyana, Camilla, Lieutenant Camilla, I should say, is undoubtedly the Torchy Award winner for this episode. And I will go to war for that.
Going off of that too, like whose name was written down? It was Kyle. It wasn't Camilla. Camilla was able to create that relationship with Thomas, Joe, and Shaheen. In being so that they trusted her. She was the one spilling the information to her tribe, whereas Kyle's like, yeah, she said everything and didn't really give up anything else that we saw in that episode. So it really makes you question that value of information that Camilla was able to give up. So much more important for the outcome of this vote because they voted Kyle. Had they not had the idol, Kyle was the boot there. They wouldn't have done enough trickery to get through that round too. They maybe would have actually had to go up to bat against each other had they not had that idol. And it seemed like Camilla really had that upper edge over Kyle. So really incredible performance to watch.
Definitely both tremendously deserving of all the praise that they received this episode. One of them is winning, Rob. I feel it. That's a real bold prediction. I feel it. I feel like one of them is winning. Like maybe. There's other contenders out there, but after this performance, man, is hard to think otherwise. At least right now for me.
No, I see the same way too. And honestly, like when you think about how there's always that one tribe that's pushed to the side, which in
Hmm.
this season it is Vula right now, right? With the original tribe members. So we're gonna see a Lagi versus Siva war when we get to the merge. And Kyle and Camilla, they might be two people that are up there, like you're saying, with that bigger threat level, and they might come for Kyle more than they go for Camilla. But I don't know. I know we're in for such a great merge, and I can't wait for it. And I know we're talking
Hmm.
episodes in the future, and we're talking about the winners and everything now. But just love Survivor, man.
Me too. Something else that I love was Thomas this season. Thomas was voted out. I tweeted out, I'm gonna miss our mean gay. Mean in quotation marks, because I'm sure he's not actually mean in real life, but to me, Thomas had that by any means necessary mentality that Jeff discussed at the premiere episode or in the premiere episode. Thomas was willing to question some people's or make actions that question some people's ethics, but he was willing to do what it took to win the game. Literally from wanting to hide Star's tool for finding her idol to searching Shaheen's or helping Shaheen search Kyle's bag, which I want to get to as well. Like he to me showed that grit that I love about Survivor and showed that he was willing to do what it took. And for that, I love him.
Talk about a dangerous gaslighter in Thomas. When we see Camilla tell everyone on the Vulu beach that Mitch had came back and there was no, and he told everyone in their tribe, that's original Siva tribe, that there was no option to step away from the challenge. And Thomas comes quick right back saying he's lying to you. I'm not the one lying to everyone else. He's lying to you. Like, my God, the way that like you saw the fire like come out of his eyes so quick, the lying so eloquently, that scared me. Man, that's another red flag. Watching someone lie off the top of their tongue so quick, my God, is that beat's just full with like lying and deceit and trickery. It's crazy to watch.
It is, but personally, again, back to go, to go back to the checked bags. Personally, I know there were some people who were thinking, oh, that's a boundary that's crossed. You checked somebody's bag. You're just gonna have to be upset at me because I'm turning full TSA. I'm searching the bag. I'm patting pockets. I'm not actually gonna pat somebody's pocket without permission, but I'm searching the bag. I'm pulling out one of those metal detectors. Like I'm running it across the bag because if you're on the bottom, I'm gonna make sure that you go home and not me. Anybody but me, and it's not gonna be me in that scenario. So I am pro bag checking, even though some people are kind of against it. I still gotta win.
No, I see it the same way too. At the hospital, when patients come into our unit, we have to do a full bag check, making sure they're not bringing in any sharp items or just items they're not allowed to have, like a vape or a phone or something like that. And
Mhm.
the I mean, we have it's like not like we're doing like a cavity search on them, but like man, we're like taking out socks, we're flipping them inside out and everything. And if I'm on that beach, man, you know, like I'm laying out a person's whole wardrobe, everything that's inside that bag, just making sure that they're not going to tribal council with something that I don't know about.
Mhm. Speaking of things that we might not know about, I heard there's trivia coming up soon. Rob, you up for a challenge?
I'm so down, Tim.
Well, let's go. It's time. Steal the bacon. So Rob and I have come up with a couple trivia questions for one another, specifically with the goal of testing some survivor knowledge. There's going to be multiple choice, so y'all can feel free to play along as well. Rob, I'm going to start us off. There's three questions. there's no set range of difficulty. They're not increasing. At least mine aren't. I'll go ahead and rapid fire ask all three, and we'll go from there. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
All right, Rob. The first question: which of these players played the most amount of days? Is it A, Dwight, B, Bruce, C, Shan, or D, Roxroy?
Ooh. Ah,
Again,
man.
that's A, Dwight, B, Bruce, C, Shan, and D, Roxroy.
I'm trying to think of their survivor placements. And I'm going to go with C, Shan.
C, Shan. That is incorrect. Shan played a total of 19 days. Dwight played a total of 14 days. Roxroy played 17 days, and Bruce played 20 days because of the one day that he had on the prior season before he was on his second season. So he has 1 day above Shan. Bruce played the most amount of days. Question 2: which tribe color was used the least? This includes merge tribes. Is it A, black, B, gray, C, pink, or D, purple?
In every single season of Survivor?
Across all seasons of Survivor, which tribe color was used the least? Black, gray, pink, or purple?
I'm going to go with pink.
Pink is correct. Pink
Thank
was
God.
used the least. So far, there was only one time, to my knowledge, that pink was used as a buff for a tribe. Last question, Rob. Of the new era, how many 0 votes to win finalists were there? Was it A, 6, B, 7, C, 5, or D, 4?
Oh, man. I could take up 8 minutes of our time trying to go through it. But I think I'll go with 7.
B, 7 is correct. Good job, Rob. 2 out
Let's
of 3.
go.
That's great. That's a passing grade. You know, I'm a teacher. You pass.
I don't know. I don't know if a 66% is passing grade though. But man, I was just hoping that like the Bruce like 1 or 2 extra days was like the trick where it's like, nah, he played twice, but he didn't actually eclipse the amount of days that Shannon played. But you know, we were right there. But all right.
True.
Are you ready for my trivia questions, Tim?
Let me crack my knuckles. I'm ready.
All right. Question number 1. In the spirit of a successful idol play happening this current episode, who was the first player to have a successful idol play? Was it A, Gary from Survivor Guatemala, B, Yowman from season 14 Survivor Fiji, or C, Eliza and her stick from season 16 Fans vs. Favorites?
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with B, Yowman.
B is correct.
Let's go.
Gary was the first player to get in possession of an idol and play it, but he didn't really need to play it at that time since he didn't have any votes cast against him. But yeah, man, saved his skin there. All right. Question number 2. Who was the first unanimous Survivor winner? Was it A, Ethan Zahn, B, the Queen of Survivor, Sandra Diaz, or C, Earl Cole?
It's C, Earl Cole.
C is correct again. Let's go, Tim.
Let's
2
go.
for 2
I know
so
my
far.
Survivor so far.
All right, well, let's see if it continues into question 3. Through season 48, and if my math is correct, how many seasons of Survivor have featured returning players? Is it A, 10 seasons, B, 12 seasons, or C, 14 seasons?
Rob, you would give me a math question. I'm thinking in my head, and I'm going to be brief with it because it is rapid fire trivia. I feel like there were 14 seasons that featured returning players because I'm thinking of Bruce counts as a returning player, And then there's Winners at War, Game Changers. Like the whole 30s was so full of returnees. Or like, prior to that, there's the first All Stars, there's Blood versus Water, plural. So I'm gonna say 14.
Tim, you say you're not a math guy, but you just went 3 for 3. Nice job, Tim. Let's
Let's go.
go.
Hey, I
Impressive
love
work.
my Survivor, so I would like to thank the Academy uh using this prize money. I'm donating it. So yeah. Great questions, Rob. Really love that.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate your questions too. Maybe just feed me some easier ones next time. No trickery.
I will for sure. I think maybe I went a little too in depth. I thought I was gonna have the easy questions creating them, but maybe not. If you're listening, let us know in the comments how many you got right, how many you got wrong. Were my questions actually that hard? We'll see. But Rob, for this last segment of today's show, we have some stuff to discuss. We got more options to vote on for season 50. So let's talk about it. It's time to mail a vote. All right, Rob. The first thing that comes up in these options is, of course, the Final Four challenge. A lot of people were wanting to have Hands on a Hard Idol as a challenge, from what I've seen, as an option for the Final Four, which is a challenge that I personally would have loved to see. That's the one where they, of course, we're familiar, Survivor Maryland, Sundial, players have to do that challenge there. So I was hoping to see it return and CBS Survivor also. But we have three other great options as well. Of these options, personally, I'm going to have to say I'm voting for option C, which is Samotion. What about you?
Yeah, Samotion is a great game too. And I'm looking at the two challenges. I think the bat challenge, right? That's the middle. That's option B, right? Where they got to build a bat at the end, the upside down bat. I think
Yep.
that's turning into one of the most classic challenges. And when I look at A, I mean, that's another classic Survivor challenge too. My only problem with option A is players can work together, and I really don't want to see that happen in an immunity challenge. So
Mm,
I'm left with option B or C, and I also chose C too. Bring back Samotion. I love Samotion. One of my favorite
it,
challenges.
literally, I'm not a big fan of ASMR, or maybe I am because I listen to rain sounds to go to sleep. But it's something about like the balls on the tracks and the winding
Mm.
that's just like so satisfying. Like if we lived in a world where rain didn't exist, I would just put on that challenge to go to sleep because it's something about it that's so soothing to me. So, absolutely, I'm voting C. Second thing that was brought up, and I'm going to go out of order here, is a switch or no switch. This is easy for me. Bring a tribe swap. I'm so pro swapping tribes, like, period. Let's swap these tribes.
I know we talked about how much we love a tribe swap this whole episode, but I voted against the switch. I chose no
Wow.
tribe swap for season 50. These players already know each other. They've had time to kind of build relationships outside of Survivor, and I want them to get through the hard way, which is finding a crack, playing the game. Don't just rely on the Survivor gods. You got to play your game to the best possible way. And I think I just want to see a really big challenge for this upcoming season, and I don't really want there to be a switch. Now, do I think there will be a switch? Yeah, I know the Survivor community really does love a switch, but I'm hoping there low key isn't.
Interesting. That'll definitely change pre-merge for sure, especially if there's three tribes again instead of two. I'm really hoping for two. Maybe we'll get to vote on that in the future. And lastly, Rob, we have advantages. There's three categories: minimal power, strategic power, and dynamic power. For me, this was an easy decision. Some people are advantage haters, some people are advantage lovers. I'm an advantage appreciator. So I voted for strategic power. I love an advantage that isn't super strong, but isn't too weak, but is just right if you know how to use it. And for me, that's where strategic power comes into play. And that's why that's my vote.
You know, I'm a Survivor fan that loves Survivor strategy, so there really was no other option than the strategic power for me as well.
Hmm. Absolutely. Like for me, again, no brainer. Love it. Again, if you're listening, bring back knowledge is power. I promise. Literally love
Shout
that
out to the
advantage. So much
heavens.
potential. Honestly, that's all we can do at this point. But yes, let us know what your votes were for in this category or this round of voting for Survivor 50. But Rob, I have to ask this. Anything else in this episode that you feel we might need to touch on that we didn't?
I feel like we talked through the episode at length. I can't see anything else in my notes or our yeah, nothing else that I can think of. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like we covered it especially well. There's so much to appreciate about this episode. But, Rob, good things have to come to an end, except if the name is Kyle and Camilla, because they're going to win. Fingers crossed, maybe. But this episode does. For the folks that are listening, shout out to you. Shout out to the posse. Again, this is a Purple Pants podcast powered production. Try to say that fast. We are Tim and Rob. This is Split the Vote. You can find us on our socials at Split the Vote Pod. And you can find me at Timstagram B. Rob, where can they find you?
You can find me at rpulworth on Instagram, and you can also check us out on Spotify too if you just want to listen to the audio version.
Absolutely. Well, it's been Tim.
It's been Rob.
It's been Split the Vote. Peace.
It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You better listen in public, might make your stomach hurt. Ooh. It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to unwind, you better get that box wine. It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to get your snack, you better hurry right back though. It's the Purple Pants. It's the